All right, I'm Dave DiPietro, and it's an honor to be here. And I'm very nervous tonight. I don't know why, because I've spoken at so many groups and so many people, but for tonight, there's something going on. I'm excited, but I'm nervous, because normally my speeches are, I get up there and I start talking about the corruption in Albany and all the bad things that are happening, because this state is in a real hurtful unit. And so I try to tell the truth. And if you watch any of my blogs or anything, you can see that I'm right out there, and I'll tell you what's going on. And then afterwards, everybody goes, Dave, do you have anything positive to say? So tonight, I said, I'm going to try and make this, after about 5 minutes, turn this into a positive thing. So I'm really nervous, because I don't know if I can do that. So let me start with, first off, any veterans here? Can we give them a round of applause? God bless you for all you do to protect us. You are the reason we're here tonight, that we can talk about this, and you fought, and what you stand for is totally against what we're dealing with right now. This is not what our Constitution, our forefathers, and everyone else wanted to do with this stupid vaccination and all these other bills that are going through, and what our state's becoming. And my father's a World War II veteran. God bless his soul. He'd be turning over in his grave right now watching this, because he fought, he bled for this country, and he was just such a true patriot and my idol. So before we even start with that, I do want to tell you that my faith, if you knew me in my previous life and now, you wouldn't believe I'd be standing here. So I want to just say, I'm here because God has changed my life, and I'm forever grateful, and I want to let you know that's why I do what I do. So thank you, Jesus. Let's start with political. Is it political? Yes, it is. All right, I can sit there and go Democrat, Republican, and go into all that. But I want to say our kids and our children are not political. Okay? Is that true? Yeah, we're not political. This was given to us by one party. But the fact is, in that party is a huge division, because there's a lot of people in that party who don't want any of this. And there's a lot of people, yes, that's right, and there's a lot of people in that party that are pushing it. So there's a huge fight. So there's a huge fight for the heart and soul of that party. And I can tell you, New York City dominates everything that we do in this state on all spectrums politically. It's New York City. Please, there's 150 elected assemblymen like me, right? So when I tell us at every place I go, 107 out of the 150 are Democrat. There's only 43 Republicans. We have no real say in what goes on there. If you saw my last blog I did, I tell people, my job, because we're in the minority, I'm in the minority, I can't get a bill to the floor. So my job is to vote on all the Democrats' bills. That's my job every day. We vote on what they want to put up. But I tell people, out of that 107, 82 are from New York City. So figure it out, 75 is the vote, 75 plus 1, they've got 82. So everything that goes through New York State has to be vetted from New York City. Does that make sense? And they do. So every time they go into conference every day, New York City people, if they don't want it, it doesn't happen. So it's real tough on a lot of Democrats to get their voice in too. On the ones that are fighting this, their voice is getting drowned out also. So I say it's political, but it's not. Okay, so I really want to make that clear. There is a fight going on with this. This is going to be a massive fight. And I want to say, I've never seen a movement, and I was there for the SAFE Act, my very first day in Albany at 1:30 in the morning, that gets brought down on a message of necessity, and I was like, what's going on? And so all the gun owners, so to speak, they weren't as organized as you are. Okay, and I'm not kidding. I organized that group. I went around the state. But they were not, you are organized, and I want to make sure you understand that, because what you're doing is making a difference. We go into Albany. I hope, how many people, raise your hand if you saw the video of the Health Committee vote last June 13th when it was changed. So you know what I'm talking about. Those that don't know what I'm talking about, there's a video, millions of views, and in Health Committee, the take away your religious exemption was brought up at the last day. That was our last day in Albany. And Gottfried, who's the chair of the health committee, is sitting there. And remember, Richard Gottfried said for a year he was with us. I will never vote against the religious exemption. I believe in that. I will not vote against it. You've got my word. And when that committee vote was taken, he changed his vote. Who was behind him? Tell me, yell out if you know. Who sat right behind Richard Gottfried? The speaker. The speaker doesn't go into committee meetings. He was then. And I'll tell you why, and you know why. So when they took that vote, Gottfried changed his vote and voted against us. But a strange thing happened. It tied 13-13. 13-13 is dead. It doesn't go anywhere. It didn't pass. He gets a nod on the shoulder from the speaker. Dick Gottfried sits there, points down. This is all on video, so I'm not telling anything out of tail. Points down. Saeed, who's the assemblyman from New York City, gets up. You watch him walk down, all the way down, bends down. The speaker whispers in his ear. He stands up and says, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to change my vote. Is that true? People who saw the video. Exactly what happened. He changes his vote. It goes out of committee to the floor, and it's automatic, and it passes. And now we have lost our religious exemption. Okay? But a strange thing happened with that too. We lost our medical exemption. They said that would never happen. I debated that on the floor. You're not going to lose the medical exemption. Well, what happened? Yes, we did. The medical exemption is dried up. I've got a friend of mine lives 3 blocks from me in East Aurora, New York, calls me up right before Christmas, screaming, crying, and not at me, telling me his story. His 9-year-old son, who had reaction and had seizure when he was vaccinated at 1 year old, his pediatrician now gives him a medical exemption every year until right now. He said, my kid's kicked out of school, and my doctor, knowing what could happen, will not give him a medical exemption. He goes, Dave, my doctor knows, he's been treating him for 9 years, that if he gives another vaccine, he can die. And he said, I'm sorry, I can't give you a medical exemption. I can lose my license. And that's New York State, people. That's New York State putting pressure, the health department putting pressure on every doctor not to give the medical exemption. So what are they doing? It's all convoluted. They're sending it over to the school superintendent, who's sending it over to some health commissioner back to Albany to make a decision on your kids and taking it away from the doctor. How stupid is that? So what happened? Why did this happen? Because on June 13th, they passed it. On June 14th, 12 hours later, Merck, the drug company, put $48 million into New York State. That buys a lot of politicians, people. So every time people come up to me and tell me every day, Dave, do we have a chance of beating this back? Is this going to pass? Are we going to be able to beat it back? I tell them, I know 48 million reasons why it won't. That's how corrupt it is. The Niagara Gazette, I think it is, did a big story this week on the money that's flown into. Now, here's where I get political, because as Republicans, both houses are in the minority, so they're not looking at us. But the Democrat Assembly Committee and the Democrat Senate Committee are getting influxed with huge money. There was just, I think, a $500,000 donation to the Democrat Assembly Committee from a drug company. And if you go through the list, there's 150,000, 50,000, 75,000, all going in to those committees. Why? Big money. So why will we have trouble getting it to the floor or getting things passed or getting an exemption, getting this religious exemption back? I can give you 48 million reasons why they're going to not get it back to us. And it's disgusting. And you got to know the truth. Albany is run by money. Albany is run by money. That's right, is the root of all evil. So when you're thinking, why do they do things up there? Why is Albany so corrupt? Why is Albany the worst government in the United States? By far. Money. Money. It drives me nuts up there because I watch and I tell you all the time, the corruption drips off the walls up there. You can sit, and I always say this to people, come on out. If you ever can come to Albany, come visit me because there's a lot of great things you can see. I can get you down on the floor, and you can watch things with me. We'll get some nice pictures. I'll take you around. That's fun. That's the fun part of the job. And I'll tell the story real quick. I had a guy come down from my district. He was a farmer. And he comes down, we get some pictures. He sits down next to me, and we happen to get into some serious debate. So he's there for about an hour, sitting right next to me in my seat. And he can't believe what's going on, because after about 20 minutes, about 38 people have come in my 7 years to visit. Half of them I don't know. They just say, hey, Dave, you put out that invite, and I came. And I've got 2 people next week, so it's really neat. And he says, he goes, is this really happening? And that's what everybody says after about 20 minutes. Did that really happen? And they're shocked. Well, this guy, it's quiet. There's a little debate going on. And this guy, all of a sudden, I didn't even know it. I'm just sitting there. He just screams out, literally. He goes, if it was up to me, there's windows all along, these beautiful windows along the top. He goes, if it was up to me, I'd back cement trucks up to every one of those windows and fill this place in it with everybody in it. Serious story. And the whole place stopped. And the speaker up on the dais looks at me, and he was just burning right through my eye. I was like, oh no, ethics charges, here we go. But then all of a sudden, you could see he was just about ready to say something, and all of a sudden everybody started laughing because it was funny, right? And then so he started laughing, and then that just, all of a sudden he just said, hey, Mr. DiPietro, please refrain your guests from any outbursts. And I was like, whoa, I got out of that one pretty quick. So that was nice. That's a true story. But we got to win this, folks. I can't tell you. We've got to win this. Here's the big thing. The Democrats, they changed the whole schedule. We usually get out end of June. This year we're going to get out literally the end of May because they changed the primary to June instead of September. We always had some primary September. They changed it to June. Well, of course, there's something going on. Like I said, there's a fight within them. So they want to make sure they're back in their district for June. So we lighten the schedule. So they've literally come out and said, look, after April 1st, the budget has to be done. So that's when the budget hits. So they said, after April 1st, we're literally not going to put anything controversial on the schedule. We'll have a nice, easy schedule for April and May before we go. So I'm saying we've got 8 weeks. That's their time frame. So we've got about 8 weeks between now and April 1st. So all these things, these bills could hit the first week, next week, the week after. We don't know because they won't tell us until literally the day before if a bill's coming up. So we've got about 8 weeks. We've got to keep the pressure on. The pressure that you've been putting on, that we've been going around the state, organizing. Every time we have one of these meetings, please, if one of these speakers says something, we got great people with great knowledge. If they say something you like, tell people, number one. Get involved, number two. And if you want to have, and you're not from this town, you're from a neighboring town, and you want to have a meeting, even for 20 people, call us. We'll come. We'll speak. We'll inform you. We'll give you everything we know about it. So I'm not getting into the science, and that's for everybody else. I'm telling you the political end, we've got about 8 weeks to beat this back. We have done an amazing job. When you guys came up on the first week of session in January, made a huge impact, I can tell you. Awesome. Great job. This is one of those issues where people just naturally said, vaccines are safe and effective. I hear that all the time. That is just a marketing tool, folks. We know vaccines are not safe and effective. Ruth Bader Ginsburg herself from the Supreme Court issued a ruling and said all vaccines are unavoidably unsafe. That comes from the Supreme Court. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, unavoidably unsafe. So when people realize this is the one thing I was just talking about out in the hallway. When we educate people, or they wake up and they get all this information, they start scratching and they go, wow, I didn't know that. And once you know it, right, you never go back. Once you know it, you're going to stay over here and you're going to say, you know what? I got to tell people. And I'll tell you when it really hurts, because I've taken this personally over the last few months. I told my wife, I said, I think I've been depressed. I said, because I've listened to so many parents whose children have been affected, and I've cried, and it just eats me up. And what eats me up is the fact that when I try to fight it, and I fight it in Albany, I get blasted from the other side. I don't know what I'm talking about. You're a racist. You're a radical. You're just an anti-vax. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. You start talking to 100 people. Start looking at the scientific data. Start talking and know what you're talking about with what's happening. Talk to someone who's been affected. It's not a Republican or Democrat thing. The former mayor of Buffalo, Anthony Masiello, who is friends with the governor. He's a lobbyist for the governor. He works for the governor from Buffalo, 10 years ago, got the flu shot and got Guillain-Barré syndrome. He was in the hospital for like 2-3 weeks, almost died. He's still staunch supporter of the governor, works for him. I see him in Albany, but he's with us. He's a staunch Democrat. This is not political, folks. It's not political. This affects everybody, and when it affects you, that's when you start waking up and saying, you know what, I got to tell more people. And we have. That's what I love. This group, we've gone around the state, and I've gone around the state. It's waking up so many people. What I always tell, what's the biggest thing about this group is the passion, because everybody here is getting passionate. And I always say, I tell my wife, I go, what I love, it goes down to the fundamentals of time. Don't ever get between a mama bear and her cub. You have overstepped your bounds by doing that. And anyone who doesn't understand that, God rest their soul. Because you don't want to be in the middle of that fight. And that's what we have here, and that's where I love it, because the passion coming out of it. In Buffalo, I don't think we even have a candidate against one of the people who was all for this and will not even speak. An assembly member who will not even speak with his own constituents when they go up to him and say, I voted for you and I'd like to sit down and talk to you about this. Nope, won't speak to him. So some of these parents have been going out on weekends and going door to door, and there's not even a candidate yet. But they just want to tell people. That's passion. And that's where a bunch of people are running scared on this whole thing politically. And we've got to beat it back, and we can. We got to keep writing those letters, the red postcards, the red letters. They got to keep going, folks. The pressure's got to double right now. Triple, yes, triple. You got to make the calls. And I tell people, don't be nice. Don't sit there and go, oh, okay, Mrs. Assemblywoman, I understand. No. You don't get rude, but you're like, look, I'm a one-issue voter. I live in your district, and I'm going to do everything I can to get you out. This is my issue. It affects me. It affects my family. It affects my kids. And if you're not going to be with me, I want you out. And also tell them, I want to see you talk about it. I want to see you on the floor. I want to see you putting a bill up. I want to see you sponsor it and bring it out, because what happens is when 107 and 76 is the vote, that's about 31 votes slush fund, right? So whenever a Democrat, this is the political part of it, and it's true, whenever a Democrat needs the protection and voting no on an issue, they go to the speaker and they say, look, I can't vote on this. Okay, wait till we get 76 to 80 votes and then vote no. And that's what they do. So they'll sit there and say, hey, I voted against that. Yeah, you did vote against it. But in my 8 years, I have never seen the 6 assembly people from Western New York ever stand up on the floor and argue against their own member's bill and say, I don't like that. Never. If they do, they're ostracized, they're out. You never, that's one written rule. You never go against, so Crystal Peoples-Stokes in my district puts up a bill. You will never hear any of the Western New York people say anything against it. But they'll vote against it. They'll get their ability to vote. But they'll never say anything in committee or anything else against it. And that's what I got to tell you. Tell those people, those elected members, you want to see something. I don't want to just see you vote against it. I know the numbers, so you got protection. And so you can come back. I want to see you say something. I want to see you write a letter to your own speaker and say, look, don't put this junk on the floor. That's where the rubber hits the road. And that's where you're going to find out. That's why when, is it Martinez, the senator? They've been bugging her for 7-8 weeks to take my bill. First came out with as soon as I came out, I said, I wrote the bill to repeal the religious exemption that they took away from us. And they've been bugging her to take it. Say, take DiPietro's bill. And then the way it works is, I'll work with her, find a Democrat that'll take it and push it, and do something with it, right? Of course, that's the only way I get anything passed of my own is to give it to a Democrat. So I work across here. I got 3 bills passed last year by giving them to Democrats. One bill was from 6 years ago, but we finally got it through. I give it to people I work with. So I said, tell her, she knows the gig. I'll give it to whoever she wants. What did she do? She wrote her own. Why? Because a different language is not the same as bill. So now she's got her own. So she says, I've got my own exemption bill. There's no Democrat assembly person on it, so it's going nowhere. It's not the same as mine, so she can even say, look, I've got an assembly person with me, because she will never let a Republican go on it. That's the down, dirty fact of politics. So when they say she's doing this, she's doing it for political cover. I want to see her get up and talk on the floor, and I want to see her get a Democrat sponsor, and I want to see some action. If I don't see some action, I know she's a phony. And that's politics. And I want you to understand that, because around here, I don't know who all your representatives are, but that's what you got to do. Both sides of the aisle. I don't want to see you just talk to me, because talk is cheap in politics. We all get it. I want to see some action. So I have, I think, 5 or 6 bills. So we have not just to take away religious exemption. As a matter of fact, how am I doing on time? Am I 22 minutes left? What did you say? 3. Okay, I'll wrap this up. I've got one bill that says, okay, if I don't know if the New York City contingent is going to allow us to repeal this, because they don't repeal anything, and they love this. So we're not dealing with it. We're not dealing with the same type of people. One of the bills is to allow parochial and private schools to allow non-vax children. What does that do? It doesn't help everybody, but it gives us an opportunity, because right now your only choice is to either vaccinate fully or get out of New York State. And that's not fair. So maybe this would allow them to go to a private, and then they could backtrack and say, hey, you know what? Maybe we did overstep a little on the religious exemption, so we'll allow them to go to a religious school. It's a compromise. So just found out today, I might be able to meet with Cardinal Dolan. I'd like the Catholics to push this, because this would be huge for them to start with, besides all private and parochial schools. This would be something that they could get behind. I just want to say I do have that bill. I put in a bill that so that before anyone gets a vaccination in New York State, they get 48 hours before they go, because when you go to a doctor's office, that's his setting. So when he says something, you're sort of like, yeah, okay, sure, doc, sure, right? No, 48 hours before any vaccination, you get a list from the doctor of all the ingredients in the vaccine and also all the negative reactions to the vaccine. And you have 2 days to do it. So I've got a number of bills. I want to say thanks. My personal Facebook page, people always say, I can't get you, it's filled. Go to my assembly page. I have all my contact information out there. I'm totally targeted, as you can probably imagine. So anything people do that help me, I appreciate it. I love you. We're going to keep this fight going. We're going to win this fight. I tell you what, this movement is the best movement I have ever seen. And I say that. I've seen a lot. We've got it. We've got them on the ropes. Don't let them go. Make the phone calls. Keep the letters coming. Make sure you go right to them. And God bless all of you.